Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars, welcome to another PlayStation guide. I haven't done a guide for a while, but after playing Battle Brothers for quite some time now, and I have put a review up for this game, I'm very acutely aware that this game has got quite a steep learning curve, and to be frank, is really quite hard to get into. So I do actually want you guys to experience this game because I absolutely love it. I gave it a 9 out of 10 in my review. I think it is absolutely brilliant. It's very, very good indeed. So I'm going to try and give you some basic tips on the early part of this game because I failed several times initially when I first started this game. It took me about I think it was on my fourth attempt, I really started to get some traction and really start understanding the game. So I'm going to give you some tips that I kind of picked up in the early parts of this game. Now this is another one of my games. I think I'm about 50 days into this, so I've got over that early steep learning curve, if you like, but it's still quite early in the game. So I'm going to give you some pretty helpful, hopefully, hints and tips on how to get through the early part of this game and get to a point where you can really start getting some traction. So I hope you find this guide useful, everybody. Now the first thing I want to talk about in regards to the game is gear, basically. Now I found after a few failed attempts that the best way to equip your team in the early going is to have a one-armed weapon, a shield and a helmet, and the best armor you can afford. Now in the early parts of the game you won't be able to afford brilliant stuff, but try and put the best equipment on each man, and they all need to have a shield, a one-armed weapon, the best armor you can buy and the best helmet you can buy, and then you just keep upgrading them as and when you get better money. After missions, your main objective is to buy better equipment for your men, but don't overspend. Just buy a couple of shields or a couple of new pieces of armor after each mission to increase the gear that your team has already got on, to improve it from the last battle. And don't over commit in regards to hiring soldiers. Always try and just buy one soldier than you had last time. So if you go into a battle with 4 soldiers at the start and you come out with 4 soldiers, just then hire one soldier to make it 5 soldiers. Don't overhire, if you like, because you won't be able to afford to gear them all up and they will just die in the next battle. So what you're looking for is one-armed weapons, so try and vary up, one of a sword, one of an axe, so on and so forth, a mace sort of thing. Give them the best shield you can, give them the best armor you can, and the best helmet you can. Sometimes it won't be a helmet, sometimes it will be a cap, but just try and do the best you can. Right, the next tip, when you are in a town and in a marketplace, there's certain things you need to try and buy if you can afford them, and one of the things is tools and supplies. Sometimes they're more expensive in some villages and towns, sometimes they're a reasonable price, but pick them up, and you can see up there, I've got 13 at the minute. Try and buy them and try and keep them in stock as often as you can, and it will keep your gear in good shape because it will get damaged. You also need medical supplies, and as you can see up there, I've got 105 medical supplies. That will heal your men a little bit quicker after a battle, so you always need tools and supplies, and you always need medical supplies if you can afford them. And you also could do with as many bandages as you can buy that you could equip on your men in battle, so if they get injured or they're bleeding or something like that, you could apply a bandage to hopefully keep them alive and keep them through a battle. Right, so once you have got your tools and supplies, you want to know how to repair your equipment. Well, you simply go to your menu, and any of the equipment that you see that has got like a percentage on it, so it needs a repair, you simply go up to it and you press left one. You press square here to set it to be repaired. So press square, and as long as you've got some tools and supplies in your inventory, it will set them to one side in order for them to be repaired, and this repairs start the next time you go on the road. Now the next tip, and it sounds pretty simple, but when you're in a town and a village, if it has a tavern, and a lot of them do, if you can afford it and it doesn't cost a lot of money, pay a round of drinks for your men, and it will get their morale up, and they'll all feel a little bit better after a battle. It does help. You need to have them in as good a spirit as possible, your men in your squad, So it does make sense where you can do it in a tavern to keep their spirits up. While this isn't a tip per se, if you're wondering how to customize your men, this is how you do it. You have to find a barber in a town and a village, and then you can customize your men however you want, and it doesn't cost any coin either. You can just change the look and the appearance of them. So you just, change the hair colour, the body, the tattoo, things like that. It's fairly limited, but you can make them look somewhat however you want. So that is definitely how you do it if you're looking to change the appearance of your men. Now, leveling up, because the majority of your men, and the majority of them are going to have like one-armed weapons and shields. Not all of them. I mean, you can have a couple of ranged people if you want, and you can have, one person carrying like a two-handed weapon, or a couple of people carrying two-handed weapons. But certainly in the early part of the game, they all need to really have shields and armor as best you can. So Shield Expert is a really, really good perk to pick up when you first get to that level. And Colossus is a good one to have in the early part as well, because it will increase your hit points. And hit points will determine really how many hits you can take, sort of thing. Also as well, once you get to a few levels down, you're able to be a master in one of the weapons. So it's good for them to be to give each person different weapons where you can, so they can each become like a master at a certain weapon, like a mace or a sword or whatever. And once you get down to that level, you'll be able to choose a mastery for each weapon as well. Now that's all well and good, you say, Aaron, but what about the combat? Well, I'm going to show you some tactics in regards to the combat. Now we're going to go into a combat situation, but one thing I wanted to mention as well is when you are choosing contracts to do, the caravan ones are a very, very good one to do. It'll be like 1 or 2 trips guarding a caravan, and it's usually fairly easy coin. You don't often get attacked. So when you're choosing missions in the early part, try and do the caravan missions, because you will get some decent coinage. Now here we are. We're in a battle. Now the mistake I made early on when I was playing this game was I went charging in full steam ahead into the battles, and I just got decimated basically. Now different battles will have different landscapes. Some of them will be elevated, as you can see here. Some of the places here on the map are elevated. You always want to try and be on an elevated position if you can help it, unless you are surrounding your enemy, and then you will, generally speaking, do damage whenever you're surrounding an enemy. Now what I always would suggest doing is waiting for your enemy to come to you. So especially when they've got shields, and the majority of my men have got shields and one-armed weapons, you've got an ability to put a shield defense up. So you're perfectly safe, even if they get one shot in when they move up close to you. Generally speaking, they will it won't be often they will do any damage to you in the early part, because you've got a decent helmet on, you've got decent armor on, and you've got a shield, so you're well defended. Now early on in the game, the quality of your armor, helmet and shield won't be as good as the ones you're seeing here on the screen, but they won't be a million miles away. But it doesn't take long for you to get to a point where you can give them pretty decent armors and weapons. It doesn't take that long at all. So just generally speaking, wait for them to come to you, and then as they get closer to you, start thinking about trying to surround them. So as they move closer to you, you start waiting for them to come to you, and then as they get closer, you start moving your men slowly around them. And don't dive in head first with your men in regards to battle. If you see an opening for one of your men to attack someone, but it's going to be leaving him isolated, leave him. Don't attack, just wait. Put yourself in a defensive stance by pressing the shield defense button, and then just wait for them to come to you. And generally speaking, they will always come to you. Sometimes they don't. If they're in fortifications, they will think, aha, we're going to wait for you. And that's fine. You can let them wait. But you go to them, but don't go charging in. Just move a couple of spaces up at a time, even one at a time. As you can see there, always keeping them in 2 lines, one behind each other. and keep your men clogged together. It's strength by numbers, and the more men you have surrounding the enemy, the better chances are that you're going to hit them and damage them. And it kind of lowers their defenses, lowers their morale, especially if you take out one of the enemy, and there's a few of the other enemies near him that you've just taken out. Their morale will drop very, very quickly. So as you can see here, I'm just moving them up slowly. You can see there I'm slowly starting to kind of work my way around them. I've only got one archer in my squad. To be honest, I'm not overly keen on the archers. They do have their uses, but most of the time they generally miss until you get to the point in the game where you get much better in regards to the weapon that you're using in regards to an archer, and you up the stats and things like that. They don't always miss, but the majority of the time I find, certainly in the early parts of the game, the archers miss. So it's not worth wasting too many slots in your squad for archers. So as you can see here, they're moving up, they're getting in position, the enemy, they're having a swing, but it's not doing anything to my men because they're well armoured and they're in defensive stances. So just continue with the game plan, looking at surrounding them. Sometimes you won't do much damage in the early part of the battles, but the more you keep surrounding them, the more chance you will have of coming away with the battle with all your men. And you might, or sometimes you will lose just one of your men, 2 tops. So as you can see, they're nicely surrounded, and I'm already making headway. There you go. See, he's coming down very, very quickly. His health, he's surrounded. So I'll forward the battle on a little bit so you can see how this kind of plays out a bit further down the line. So as you can see here, I've only forwarded it a couple of minutes. I'm pretty much fully surrounding their men now. There's a couple of stragglers up the top, but you don't need to worry about them too much. Just send a couple of the men up there to kind of protect your archer, basically, because the archers are usually the weakest, and they will try and target the archers sometimes. So just send a couple of men up the top there to kind of take out the ones that are going down it the other way, trying to outmaneuver you that way. So he's making sure that they can't come around the back and surround you. So just keep going with the game plan. It is frustrating when you swing and miss and you don't have a hit, but generally speaking, you will get there in the end because you're going to be surrounding the enemy. And even if there's 2 or 3 people surrounding an enemy, one of them will get, or 2 of them will get some good hits in there. See, even though he was on a lower position on the map, the enemy was elevated because he was surrounded. There was more chance of you hitting with your weapon. To keep going with the game plan, as you can, I mean, this enemies that I'm fighting here are not brilliantly equipped, but they do. Some of them do have shields. Some of them do have some bits of armor and some decent weaponry. But they shouldn't really pose too much of a challenge for my squad that is better equipped than theirs. But you will find as well, if you go into a battle, even if you've got better equipment than the enemy, if you don't think about it and you don't plot out your attack carefully, then you will just simply die, or you will lose a lot more men than you anticipated. So it's almost like a game of chess. You've got to be really quite smart in regards to where you're positioning your men. Wait for the enemy to come to you, and try and surround the enemy as best you can, and just be patient. So there we go. We are almost at the end of this battle. I don't believe I've lost a man yet. And that's it. The last one's down. Everybody made it through. one leveled up, and then you can just sort of check what gear you got. So let's see what gear we got by beating these. So on the right hand side, that's all the gear that we've won from killing the enemy. Some pretty decent gear there. Them 2 pieces of armor will be very good to put on a couple of my soldiers. So you press triangle, collect all the loot, and that's it. That's how you do it. I hope you found these tips and tricks useful, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it useful, please click the like button, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe.